What's up, guys? Welcome back. So, I have a very special guest for you today. Well, I guess I was the guest. I did a nice little feature on the Banking Bros podcast. A couple of the gentlemen that I work with, Jeremiah and Jonah, do. And we talked all about income stacking. So, I think you're going to have a great time just kind of hearing us go off about how we found out about income stacking, how we've implemented it in our lives, and what the future might potentially look like. Now, if you're just listening to this, we do a really good job breaking it down, but I would highly suggest going and checking out the YouTube video and seeing some visuals because, again, I'm an extremely visual person myself, and so I love actually seeing what people are talking about. Helps my slow brain work a little faster. But anyways, kick back, relax, whip out your notebook, and enjoy the episode. Peace.
Sean, I appreciate you so much for joining us on this podcast episode. What is going on this morning?
Oh, nothing much, man. Just another day in the life of a father. Dropped my little man off at school, and boy, didn't want to go.
I love it. I love it. Today was our first day back after actually a holiday break, and so that was fun, getting up a little earlier than we have the past couple weeks and getting the kids over to school. We drive fancy cars, right? So my son's like complaining, you make sure you heat the car up before we get into it because it's a little chilly this morning. I'm like, I felt like, my parents. Back in my day, I had to walk to school uphill both ways,
Well, you better bring a blanket.
Right. Anyway, man, I'm really excited about this episode, Sean, because in this episode, we get to dive in to something that we've both been practicing over the summer, that we've learned about kind of early summer, or maybe the later spring, early summer. We've both been practicing that, and this is the idea of cash flow stacking, or sometimes people can call it the income snowball. There's a group that we're affiliated with that's got a trademark on that one. And we're going to not only talk and walk through what it is, how to do it, but we'll also give some updates on what we've done in this idea over the 2025 as we end that year and get started almost with 2026. So I'm excited to talk through that. How does that sound to you?
I'm excited too, man. It's exciting stuff that we're learning about and implementing in our lives. And boy, the outlook looks fantastic. So look forward to share it with people.
Yeah, I'm excited for those who are watching or listening to this episode because there's some practical information in this episode. What I mentioned this before on a few different podcasts or videos, that I'm a person that likes to learn things so that way I can apply them. About 2 or 3 years ago, I sat down with a potential client. We were just having some lunch, and he asked me that question. He said, Jonah, do you like learning for learning's sake, or do you like learning to apply? And I had never heard it asked like that before. But after thinking about it for just a little, I realized I really like my demeanor, my personality likes to learn to apply. I actually don't like learning for learning's sake. When people try to talk to me and it's like learning for learning's sake, did you know this? I like tune out. Like how do I use that information, But if I can learn to apply, I can take it all in. And so this summer, I learned to apply, and that's why I'm excited for this episode. If you're out there listening or watching, and you're a person that likes to learn to apply, this episode is for you. We're going to dive in to income snowball, cash flow stacking, whatever you want to call it, and show you what we've been learning and what we've been applying in our life. So in order to start this episode off, Sean, I thought maybe I'd give a little bit of a feedback on how I was introduced to it. And then I think if my story is going to line up appropriately, I think I might have mentioned something to you, which also introduced it to you. So I'll go first, you go second. Does that sound okay?
Sounds good.
All right. So earlier this year, the year 2025, I was actually approached. I got an email basically that said, hey, we're very interested in what you do. We know a little bit about it, and we'd like you to come and speak at an event for 75 of our clients. And so generally when I get those emails, I'm normally very interested in speaking at your event. So just in case you're thinking about asking, you should send the email over. This event was pretty cool. It was in Hawaii. But of course, Hawaii comes with a few costs, right? And it was over a weekend. I think that maybe I was supposed to be at the soccer game or something with the kids. So had to go home, talk to the wife about it, figure out if we could do it. But we ended up being able to get it done. So I was in Hawaii this summer speaking at this group. Now, the company name is called TARDIS. And TARDIS, actually, I think it's TARDIS Cash Flow Strategies, I think is the full name, but most people that I know call them TARDIS. Now, the company has a patented calculator and a process called the income snowball. They've actually got a book. I'll bring it up on the screen here in just a second for everybody so they can see. And this is a book that I have read. We've got a couple of them in our office. The book is called Creating Your Income Snowball. So I've got it up on the screen. If you're looking, you can get it on Amazon. It looks like it's about $25 or so. But this book talks about how to create a passive investing strategy. And that was really unique to me, Sean. So I'm in this event. I'm speaking on our save and spend system, the infinite banking concept, to their group of 75 people. But of course, every other session or every third session is on their information, right? Their income snowball. And I started to realize that of all these people in the group, there wasn't like you, Deshaun. You've been to a couple of these events where like the first set of tables are all the people who are gung ho, who are doing it, who understand what's happening, but the back set of tables are like, we just got here, we don't know what's going on, where are the snacks? You know what I mean? Okay, so what was unique to me about this event was the whole room was gung ho. This is working. It's working well. I'm doing it. It's been working. It's been years of work, that sort of thing. And that was unique to me because I go to a lot of events. And normally I don't see a lot of events where everybody was involved. And so I started to read into it, watch videos on it, and have discovered this idea of the income snowball. When I came back and kind of relayed that trip and the travels to a couple people, you included, I said, listen, folks, this is like, I think that we're onto something here. We need to look into this. We need to read up on it. We need to watch the videos. And I think that was when I got back from that trip a week or 2 weeks later is when I introduced kind of the idea of, hey, Sean, pay attention to this as we kind of got through the summer. Does that sound right?
Yep, that sounds about right.
All right. Sean, give us your intro a little bit, your side of the perspective on how you got introduced.
Yeah, so again, much like you said, you went to that event and some light bulbs went off in your head and you're like, man, what we do and what they're teaching seem to marry so well together. And we're always looking for like low risk things. We want to be building our cash. We're thinking long term. And so we're also looking at things that will allow us to create cash flow and also protect our money at the highest level possible. So when you came back and you started to explain it, boy, it took a second. I was like, I don't see this matching up, man. Like as far as what we're making versus what we could be making, what we're normally making if we're putting our money other places. But you kind of walked us through it. I think you and I had a private conversation, and then we had one with my wife because I'm like, she's got the same questions I do. Like
can't put money in things unless everybody's on board. I don't need that heartache.
So we walked and talked it out, and we're just like, man, I see it. If this is our goal, if cash flow is our goal, and we're thinking long term, this is the answer. So shortly after I kind of got on board with it, and I was about to move forward with, doing my first stacks and whatnot, is I went to the NNI, the Nelson Nash Institute training for practitioners. And I met up with a gentleman that ended up writing a book called Dibs on Your Money. His name is Michael Kwong. And so I had bought that book because I was looking up things about income stacking and I knew that he had written that. And so I had bought that book before I went to the event, and he just happened to be at the event too. So I read through the book while I was there. We shared a hotel room together. We were talking about some of the stuff. And then I was able to sit down and ask him a bunch of questions because he's been doing it for quite some time. And he laid a lot of things out for me. And again, everything that had already kind of clicked when you explained it clicked even more. And the marriage between the two things became, an obvious. And he took it to a couple next levels with his book, which I'm still maybe not there with some of the things you're capable of doing with your policy, infinite banking, and the actual income stacking side of things. But let's see, I started my first stack in October, so I got my first payment in November, so last month basically. and I'll be starting a second one here in January. But yeah, so introduction through you. It always seems to be the people you know. Like I've realized once you enter the infinite banking space, all of these doors open up, and then you just start getting all of these potential opportunities on how people with money are making money, keeping money, growing their money, and it's because you have capital now. So
There's
yeah,
an
thank
old
you.
there's an old quote, Sean. I'm sure you've heard it, and it talks about you are the average. You are the man. I'm going to mess it up, but you're the average of the people you hang around. Have you heard this one before? Like there,
Yep, I've heard it as you're the sum of the five people you
there it
hang
is.
around most.
You're the sum
So
of the
yeah,
five people you hang around most. If you got five friends around you and everybody's broke, guess what?
you broke. You the sixth one.
Right. You're the sixth one, man. And so I love that you said that. Okay. So we've got to tell the people who are listening or watching exactly what the income snowball or income stacking, cash flow stacking actually is. Okay. Why don't you give us a brief rundown? I'll jump in anytime I can be helpful.
Yeah, so basically all you're doing is there's a couple different companies that you can do this with. The idea is that you're finding short-term amortized notes that are paying you back a percentage, principal plus interest over a certain period of time. So TARDIS would call this fast burning fuel in this case. And fast burning fuel, I don't know what their range is, but you're probably looking from that like 2 to maybe 5 year range. So in our case, we
I think
would,
the sweet spot is 3 years. Almost anybody that we've talked to loves the 3 year sweet spot.
yep. So 3 years is kind of where we found that sweet spot. But the idea is, hey, I'm taking, depending on how you're doing this, they teach it through HELOCs where you get that line of credit, actual line of credit through a bank or through a policy loan, which is what we feel like is the absolute best way to do this because you get the most control over the scenario. But I'm taking a loan from, let's say, my policy of a certain amount of cash. I'm using that cash to start a stack. I'm then taking my cash flow that I have. This is not for people who don't have any cash flow. This is people who have 500 plus extra cash flow every month. And I'm taking what the stack is paying me. So let's use a $10,000 stack. I take a $10,000 loan from my policy. I put it into a stack. That stack kicks me back, let's call it $330. That $330 plus whatever my cash flow is going to be used to pay back that loan that I took from my policy in this case. And you want to have that work over a certain period of time. Again, we find the ideal spot is no more than like 5 months, maybe give or take, for that payback period to start off with. And then we just kind of repeat this process. But if I can pay off that loan in 4 to 5 months back to my policy, and my income stack was paying me out for 36 months, I have give or take 31 or 32 months of interest plus principal payments coming back to me before I start and in that meantime, I start my second, third, fourth, fifth stack and just kind of stack these reoccurring payments back to myself, one on top of the other, and just kind of build this massive, massive passive income flow.
That's exactly it. I'll say the same steps. I'll do them in kind of my order because I know for me, if I'm driving on the road right now, listening to this podcast episode, I need probably to hear it twice, right? Or else I'm going to back up. I'm going to back up and play it slowly. I'm going to go from 1.35 speed down to 1 speed so I can hear all the steps appropriate. So I'm going to save you guys, for those of you who are listening or watching, I'll do it again. So here's what I think is the first step. And you said it very well, Sean. You said this is not for people that don't have any extra cash flow. So that's super important, right? I think step one is determine how much extra cash flow you've got. Okay, so I really do mean it. If you've got $100, $250, $500, $1,000, $2,500, $5,000 extra a month, that's the number you need to determine first. And the reason that I really love that kind of as the first step is because it goes along so much with what we teach people every single day. You've got to get your financial picture, your budget, your expenses under control. You've at least got to know them. You've got to have them down. I don't know if you've got them on paper. You've got them on the computer. Sean, are you a paper guy, or you have them listed in a spreadsheet? How does you and your family?
Most of my budget stuff, I just did my budget yesterday because yesterday was the first of the month, and I do it the first of the month every month. So got a spreadsheet in my on my computer that I punch everything I spent into. Got the stuff that stays the same, the reoccurring expenses, got the stuff that varies, that we change. But yeah, I keep track of that stuff every single month.
I do also. First of the month was yesterday, so I also did my family's budget yesterday, but I'm pretty much all digital these days, all digital. And I'm trying to automate lots of things, right? So I even, believe it or not, I Venmo somebody every single month for a TV service. I use YouTube TV. It's a buddy of mine who does it. We split it. I don't know if I'm implicating myself. I don't even know if you're allowed to do that, but we do it. And I Venmo him every month, right? And I logged into Venmo. You can set recurring Venmos. So that's my game. I'm going to recur it because I don't need brain space going on whether or not I gave this dude $20, right? I just don't need it. Anyway, okay. So first thing, determine your extra cash flow. So let's pretend your extra cash flow is $500, right? Second thing, like Sean said, is you go out and you find short-term amortized notes. Now, there's a couple different platforms that some of these folks will recommend, like Tardis, who I started working with. They're going to recommend 2 or 3 or 4 platforms. We've also been able to find a different platform just through communication with some of the other infinite banking people and finance coaches in our space. So that's amazing. Okay, short term. So like Sean said, 2 to 5 years, but we found everyone who talks about the sweet spot as being 3. So that's what we've got going on currently, 3 years. Amortized, that means you're getting principal and interest back. So you're not giving them $10,000 and you're only taking, $15 a month or something for 3 years, and then you get a big balloon of your $10,000 back at the end. That's not what's happening. You're getting principal and interest back every single month, okay? So that's what you do second. Okay, third, you determine the dollar amount that you should put toward that note. So here's what I liked about Tardis's model. That's who I went through to get this process started. That's the event that I was at. That's the coaching that I received, right? Here's what I loved about it. They said your cash flow from step 1 determines your dollar amount in step 3. They said if you have the cash flow to completely pay something off in 5 months or less, then you are allowed to do that figure for step 3. So they would say, no, even if you've got a HELOC worth $250,000 or $100,000, you cannot use all that money to put it in your first stack or flip, whatever you want to call it. I'll use stack. You cannot use that first a whole dollar amount to put it in there. You need to use a dollar amount that allows your normal cash flow to pay it off in 5 months or less. So if your cash flow was $500, let's do the math. 5, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500. They'd say your very first flip or stack should be 2,500 or possibly 3,000, 3,500. I'll tell you why. It's because when you take the money out of wherever you get it, and again, we recommend you get it from your infinite banking policy and put it inside of that short-term amortized note, you're going to be receiving principal and interest payments back, which means you're going to get payments back starting in month 2, month 3, month 4, and you can use those payments along with your cash flow, the extra $500, to pay back wherever you got the money from. Pay back something like your policy or your HELOC, or wherever you got the money from. And by doing that, you'll eliminate any outstanding third-party debt or note in what? 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, right? But then you've got the rest of the 3 years of this money coming back toward you that you then can use at your leisure, cash flow. Now, a lot of people, the whole kind of process with income stacking, or a snowball is to keep going. So once you pay one off in 2, 3, 4, 5 months, whatever your time period is, you're going to do it. You're going to rinse and repeat, right? Same as get the shampoo going, right? You're supposed to wash twice. I don't think you have to wash twice anymore, Sean. I don't think they make you do that. Remember when we were coming up, you had to do it twice. Did you not?
Yes, you did. And I'm trying to think back to when I had long hair, because now I wash once. I got this little bit of hair on my head by choice.
I think when we were coming up, the shampoo bottle said you're supposed to go twice. Rinse and then
shampoo
you
was
go
also
again.
far less expensive back then. Ain't nobody doing twice now with what that stuff costs.
It's true. But anyway, that's the process, right? You rinse and repeat again. And so we've been practicing that for the summer, basically. You said your first one was in October, is that right?
Correct, yep.
Okay, love it. My first one was in August, and since then I've done 3 different flips or stacks. And so I wanted to walk through that because especially if people are considering doing it from their policies, we should like do all of the numbers, do all of the math with them so that I can understand what this looks like and how it works. And so I thought we
So
could have a fun time doing that on this episode too.
yeah, and I actually sent you a couple things in our little chat there that you could probably pull up and share. That basically a $10,000 example with the 12% over the 36 months that we can kind of walk through. I think 4 stacks that I showed, but basically one of the things that we teach people when it comes to this on the debt side is the debt snowball. So one thing that you want to be very aware of is, hey, once I pay this thing off, this loan to my policy, this portion of this line of credit that I took out to start my stack, what I don't want to do is start taking that additional money and going and spending it. Like you were saying, the idea is long-term thinking here. So we want to re-inject that into our next future stack. Same thing with the debt snowball. When I pay off a credit card and I free up $100, I'm not $100 richer to go and spend $100 more dollars. I now have $100 that's going to help tackle my next debt. So it's literally the same concept in reverse. Instead of eliminating debt, we're building wealth. So you want to be very careful. Yes, we're creating this passive income, but there's a goal that most people are shooting for to get to, where then we can start pulling some or, a portion of that money, start utilizing it. And then, we'll talk about what we do later on when those things get real big.
I love it. That sounds so good. Okay, I do have your examples up on the screen. I'm going to throw the first one up there with a $10,000 stack, and we'll kind of talk through, and we'll do some math. Actually, Sean, let's assume that the people who are listening to this episode, this podcast, are going to get that $10,000 from their infinite banking concept policies, from their whole life insurance. So let's do that math as we go through. The folks at home, if you're watching, you can see this. If you're listening, we'll make sure we talk you through the numbers, and so that way you can follow along with us. So the first thing that I'm going to pull up here is to talk about, again, we're looking at the $10,000 passive income stacking. The first thing I want to talk about, I'll just go through my steps, Sean. So the first step is determining your cash flow. So in this first example, this is dotted line and higher, what we're looking at. The first thing we need to do is determine cash flow. So in this example, we've got a $2,000 cash flow. So Sean, that's actually pretty close to what I told Tardis that I had in my life when I started my first stack. I told him I had about $2,500 cash flow. What I mean by cash flow is extra money, excess at the end of the month, right? That you can do with what you want to do with. And so this example got $2,000 cash flow. Do you think, Sean, talk to me about how realistic that is for the people at home who are listening or watching?
Well, if you're in a 2-income household, a dual income household, this is probably pretty realistic. I mean, this is right around where we settled in with our first stack. We did slightly higher than this, but again, the great thing about this is it's going to meet you where you're at. We need to at least have 500, but anything up from that, we're going to be able to work with. But again, when you understand what's going on, you're going to find those extra dollars, believe me.
I love it. Okay, so then we're going to the first green box. It says we're going to leverage a $10,000 policy loan. Okay, now why $10,000? We'll go back to your cash flow. $2,000 excess every month. $2,000, $4,000, $6,000, $8,000, $10,000. That's 5 months. You can pay off this loan in 5 months' time. That is important. 5 months or less. So then back to the green box, we're going to leverage a $10,000 policy loan. We're going to put that in a short-term amortized note. And it looks like that short-term amortized note, which again, we've got resources. We can point you in the right direction. We can get you some coaching on this, is going to send us back $332 for the next 36 months. Sean, do the math on that for us. 332 times 36. How much money are we actually getting back over the next 3 years? 332 times 36. I got 11,952. 11,952. Now, a lot of people who are listening, Sean, are going to do the math on that return, and they're going to say that I could get a better or bigger return elsewhere.
True.
Have you heard that up to this point?
100%. Yep.
Yep. Right. So what's your take on that? What do you want them to think about if they're saying, if I put in 10,000, I'll get 11,952 back in 3 years. I can get bigger than that elsewhere. What do you want them to think about here?
A bunch of things, but one of my first questions is, especially if there's somebody that's dealing with infinite banking, is what's Nelson's number one rule? Number one rule is think long term. So one of the things that he mentions in the video is it's not about rate, it's about volume. So don't get confused by the amount of interest that you're getting paid back. This is one stack. We're going to be doing multiple of these within a year's time. So again, much like with policies, I try to not focus on the return that comes back from this, but what this process looks like long term. Because if we laid it all out for you and you actually saw what it was going to do, you would be extremely happy with the results that'll come from it.
I love it. Okay, follow the arrow back to our example. So now that we've got $332 coming back every single month for 36 months, plus our $2,000 cash flow, we can send our policy $2,332 every single month, which means instead of taking 5 months to pay off, we actually pay off the policy loan in 4.3 months. So now we've got no outstanding third-party debt, whether it's outside, if we used a HELOC to do this, or if we used a policy, internal debt, right, that we're holding, we've got none because we've paid it off, 4.3 months to pay it off, which means we've got 32 months left of $332 showing up every single month. Does that make sense? That's pretty good. Okay, so Sean, we got to do some math on the policy loan. For those of you who are taking policy loans, we are going to pay some interest over 4.3 months. So we need to do some math on how much this is actually costing us out of our policy. So let's pretend, Sean, that our policy is going to charge us 5% interest. Does that sound okay to you?
Yep.
Okay, so over the course of a year on a $10,000 loan, 5% interest is going to be $500, right? Yep. But we didn't have the loan outstanding for all 12 months. We only had it outstanding for 4.3 months. So what that means is if you take $500 for 12 months, divide by 12, basically, right? That'll give you about $41 a month in interest. And if you have your loan outstanding for 4.3 months, so just take that 41 times it by 4.3, we're going to end up paying the insurance company $179.16 in interest. $179.16 in order to generate $332 of volume back to us for the next 32 months.
And Jonah, I want to get a little bit more granular than that, because isn't it true that because we have simple interest loans, that as I'm paying this loan down from month 1 to month 2 to month 3, the actual amount that I'm owing interest on in the future up until the point is paid is becoming less and less and less. So the number that you said is if it was spread out evenly over a 12-month period for that $500, but it's not, because we're paying down a decreasing amount. So it's going to be less than whatever that amount is that you calculate in your...
That's it. I calculated it based on me punching things in as fast as I could punch them in here on the calculator. But Sean, your explanation is exactly correct. We actually even pay less than that because insurance companies charge us the simple interest. So I said $179 of interest. It's not actually even that high. If I had a computer program up where I could plug it in, I'd show you the actual number. But for those of you who are listening, you need to know that it's probably more like $150, $130, right? It's just less, which is really cool. But here's the coolest part to me. So I fully completed one flip, Sean. So I'll give you my numbers so you can kind of understand. I leveraged a $13,500 policy loan. I put it into a short-term amortized note, and actually a lot of notes, that equaled about $450 back to me for 36 months. I took my cash flow and the $450, so it's about $2,900 every single month, and paid off the $13,500. Sean, I actually did it in 3 months. I took a little extra cash flow in that third month and just knocked it out. Okay, so I've got in 3 months something paid off that now has 33 months back to me, $450 every single month without fail, right? So I've actually already done that. I then, because I paid off the $13,500 kind of fast, I decided to increase my number from $13,500 to do $15,000. Okay, so instead of jumping into 15, I'm going to go back to your sheet here, Sean, and I'm going to show them the bottom half of that dotted line so they can kind of understand what's happening. So here's what we've got
really
going
quick,
on.
Jonah, before you move on to the next point, you had asked me that question earlier. Hey, I can earn the higher interest rate out here. One of the things I want to touch back on that I think brings a lot of clarity to people is, number one, the cost to you in this scenario that we just laid out was that let's call it $170 in interest. You said 179. Let's meet at 170. That was the interest that you paid for using that $10,000. You made $1,952 in interest over that period of time. So the real delta there is you paid 170 to make 1952. If you want to compare what that is, because again, that $10,000, it wasn't ours, it was someone else's money. So really the return, whatever that number is 17 plus $1,782 that you made from leveraging that $170 of interest that it cost you. That's what you want to focus on if you're looking at, well, what did my money actually do for me?
There's so many ways that you can do that math in your mind, whatever makes the most sense to you. I know that investors like to look on cash return, but I think true cost, my $170 of interest versus true earnings, which is like $1,700, right? After the subtraction, that's
10x return.
That's 10x. That's 10x return is what I'm getting, right? And so it depends on how you like to look at math and how you like to do it, because I can tell you it's 10x and then someone else is going to go, no, but I had to wait. And so you got to have the time value of money, right? And then all of a sudden you get really granular, which I get. I'm not trying to step on your toes if that's the way you're thinking. But the key here is, like Sean mentioned, I love that you said it, it's volume, it's not rate. Because when we do this second stack, you'll understand why, right? So here we go again. Let's pretend it's 4.3 months later. 4.3 months later, we do another $10,000 policy loan. It gives us another $332 every single month for 3 years, 36 months. So now we take our cash flow of $2,000, 332 from the first stack, 332 from the second stack. We've got $2,664, and we use $2,664 to pay off the $10,000. And now instead of paying it off in 4.3 months, Sean, we pay it off in 3.8. So we're getting faster at paying this stuff off. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And here's what's cool about that. So I'm going to say 4 months, 3.8. I'm just going to round up to 4, right? In 4 months, what do we have? Well, we have 2 stacks. The first one has 28 months left of sending us money, $332. The second one has 32 months left of sending us money, $332. They both cost us about $170, right? Even less on the second one. I'm saying about because we paid it off faster in order to earn the 10 times return. And we are carrying, after 3.8 months, no outstanding third-party debt. We're carrying no outstanding interest accumulation on our policy. We're carrying nothing, but we are creating the volume of cash flow. And so the strategy here is to rinse and repeat. Once you start paying off the stacks in 3 months, 2 months, shorter than that, we encourage you, and everyone else who practices this would encourage you to increase the value from the get-go. So instead of 10,000, we're now going to 15 or something like that, 12, 5, 15, that sort of thing. And so that's why I said in my personal example, that's why, because I paid off my first one in 3 months, I took the number a little higher. I went from 13,500 to 15,000. I put it in a short-term amortized note that's sending me back $498.21 every single month. I got that first paycheck today, probably. It came.
Yep, I got paid today too.
Today, right? And we're going to use that. So in my scenario, I'm using $498 from the second stack. I'm using $450 from the first stack. That's a total of $900. Am I doing the math right? Yeah. That's a total of $950 plus cash flow that I had to pay off where I got the money from. We're going to pay this thing off in probably about 3 months. And then because I'm trying to stack them, I'm going to go again. Now, some of you might be thinking, right, when I showed my wife, her question, Sean, was, when do we take the money home then?
When do we use it?
Yeah. When do we use it? What do you got to say to that one?
It all depends on what your scenario is. I mean, you'll see from the people that teach this out there, it's really all about you. So maybe you want to get to a point where you have an extra $1,000 of passive income in a month. Well, ideally, the goal is to grow your stack sizes, the income that's coming back to you, to a point where you can cut off about 10%, 10, maybe 15 of that and start utilizing that income. And again, it all really depends on the amount of money that you're looking to get back from this. But 10%, when you can cut off 10% of the income that you're bringing back in from all of your stacks, and that covers your expenses, whether it's half of your expenses, your entire expenses, whatever the case may be, then that's probably where you want to be at. And again, I can't tell you when that's going to be because I don't know what your stack size is and I don't know what your number is going to be. But for a lot of people, that tends to be around that 7 to 10 year range.
I love it. So one of the things that I told my wife when she asked the question, I said, Sean, we can take the money anytime we want. That's the key here. We can take the money anytime we want. It's our money. It's coming back in. It's not going through third party. It's ours. However, the goal here is not to take $500 or $1,000. We want to take $10,000. So while things are fine, while things are good, let's continue to stack because the time's going to pass anyway. That was one thing that kind of rung true with me. The time's going to pass anyway. You guys who are listening to this podcast, how long has it been you've been working that job? How long has it been you've been in the house? The time's going to pass anyway. If over the next 5 years you could employ this strategy, which pays very, very little out of pocket in interest with a return like this, much bigger, that then generates volume of cash flow over the next 5 years, the time's going to pass. You would be so surprised what 5 years will do in a system like this. Sean, in 5 years, instead of, so reminder, I started in August. It is currently, at the time we're recording this podcast, December 2nd, right? Okay, from August to December 2nd, I have personally generated $900, $450 from the first stack and 500 basically. It's 498, but 500 from the second stack. Okay, so that is $950. I've personally generated $950 that is showing up no matter what I do for basically the next 3 years. The 450s got 33 months left, and the 498, the 500s, got 35 months left. Basically, the next 3 years, $900 is showing up no matter what I do. That makes me feel pretty good. But I don't want 900, I want 9,000. Does that make sense? And so I'm going to keep stacking because of that. Go ahead.
And Jonah, there's a cool thing to think about here, and I've explained this to Amanda, and we feel extremely confident in this because, again, our goal is to move overseas and obviously continue to do what we do, teach people and do all this stuff. But think about this. If you're stacking income like this and you have a bad month at work or something and your income isn't what you need it to be to cover your expenses, you got passive income coming in. Like I can go and grab 800, 1,000, whatever it is that my stuff's kicking back to me on a monthly basis and cover my butt for a month or 2 or 3, whatever the case may be. Sure, it's going to slow your stack down, but what's the most important thing? Most important thing is right now, making sure I don't go into debt, getting me back on my feet and everything.
That's one thing I love most about income stacking, passive income stacking, cash flow stacking, the income snowball, Sean, is exactly that, control. Because we preach that so often when we talk to people about the infinite banking concept, and this is the same deal, exactly what you said. I was talking to my wife, I'm saying, sweetie, we can take the money whenever we want. If we come into a bad month, you better believe I'm using that $1,000 that we've generated. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't we? I'm not going back into debt. I'm not just getting out the credit card. I'm not doing any of that, right? But the key here is that sure, it might slow us down a month or two, like Sean said. But the key here is that we are on a path now. We now have a philosophy. We now have a plan on how we can generate $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 every single month of passive income by following the steps. The steps are simple. You've heard them here on this podcast. There are 3, 4, maybe if you add something extra in there, right? Steps in order to get this done, and then it's just a rinse and repeat process. So I'm really excited about this. It's been, again, since August for me. I currently have 2 stacks going. The next one, Sean, you said your next one's in January. My next one's in February. We've discovered a group of people who are doing this that are also practicing the infinite banking concept. That makes me feel a lot better about where we're putting some of the money instead of just using kind of some of the generic third-party. You can go on this site and get principal and interest short-term loans, right? That makes me feel a lot better, and I really love kind of the new avenue here of helping people generate passive income. Sean, you sent me a podcast recently of someone else who was talking about this, who basically said you could, just in case you've started the income stacking already, you could use the monthly dollar, like in our example, the $332, and use that money to fund your policy, which I thought was really, really unique. That person on that episode said every month for 3 years, when I get this money back, I literally have my policy premiums be debited the next day. So it hits from the income stack and is debited to the policy the next day. I know my policy's paid for 3 years.
Yep. This will without a doubt be the way that I pay all my future policy premiums through stacks and basically repay myself. Like, it's just like infinite banking. Once you open the door, you're like, wow, so many things are possible here. This is literally crazy what I can do with this.
And I thought the same when you mentioned that. I thought, no, that's super good, because if you stack them appropriately, you get your dates right or whatever you need to do, that's exactly how I'll do it. Why wouldn't I? Because I'm trying to get the stacks so big that, like you said, I can carve off 10% or 15%, maybe every time, every 3 months or whatever, and use it to live off of. And that's the goal. And the cool part about it is because this is so systematic, you can plan it out. You can create your own scenario. We can help you. We've got some calculators and some other people who we can point you to that literally can give you your 5-year, 10-year, 15-year plan. And so it'll tell you what the numbers are, which is amazing, because then you can you've got something to print out and put on the fridge and follow in order to accomplish it. And I love that. I am a big follow direction guy. I can follow some directions.
Same, 100%. I love well thought out directions that allow me to execute at a high level. One of the things that we didn't even mention, and why using your policy is so great, is this entire time that you've been stacking this income. We talk about 5, 7, 10 years, whatever it is. Your policy is guaranteed to get more and more efficient every single year. So not only are you building this money machine on the outside that's kicking you back these 36-month notes, but you also have this guaranteed money printing machine on the inside that every time, as the years pass, that you put dollars in, more dollars than you put in are showing up for you to leverage and use again. It's insane, man. I'm like, whew, I can't
I'll tell you this, Sean, too. When I'm sending my cash flow from the stacks back to my policy, my income that I'm getting from the stacks back to the policy, I am adding PUA. Because I took money from my policy, and so I'm going to repay my policy with PUA. So it's not a bunch. It's It's just a few dollars, but I am absolutely doing it. So for instance, I got $498.21 off stack number 2, but I sent the insurance company, like, my paperwork says 505 because I'm sending PUA. Like, I'm going to practice it regardless. Because I'm an honest bank. I am a banker. This is where I got the money. I'm sending that money back with PUA. So I would encourage anyone who's going to think about this from their policy to make sure that we're repaying with PUA also. And we'll walk you through that if you want to talk to us about it. But I absolutely am doing it. Like, nope, you're getting PUA also every time.
100%. So I think that we might need to end up doing, and this is up to you, but an additional episode talking about, hey, what does the forecasted future look like once I've built these stacks? Like, what am I doing? Because you guys, you got to understand, if you just did $10,000 on these stacks and you increase it every time that you got to below the 3-month mark, and let's say you were adding your $2,000 of passive income, and you did that instead of a retirement vehicle or with a retirement vehicle, but let's say instead of putting that $2,000 into your 401k or qualified plan, 20 years down the road, we're talking about monthly payments of $120, 30, 40, 50, 80, $180,000 a month coming in from these stacks. So it's like, cool. What do I do with this money now? Like, I want to put it somewhere. And that's why we've been kind of leaning heavily into this guaranteed income side of the business, where we want to show people this is how you take money that you have and make it last forever, creating you a guaranteed pension for life, no questions asked. And so we just chunk off pieces. And again, we'll have to talk about that at some point because it's crazy, guys.
I agree. We'll have to come back for a part 2 on income stacking, and we'll show you some of our numbers. A few months go by, right? Or maybe not that long, but show you some of the things that we've been accomplishing so you can kind of see it in action. So I love it. Sean, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We really appreciate you having your insight. We're going to do more episodes together. We'll come back for a part 2 on income stacking, but we appreciate you being here.
No doubt, man. Always a pleasure. Man, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Again, very let's call it high level stuff. Income stacking is much like the stack. There's a lot of different layers to what you could go into on this, but that's kind of like layer one of learning about income stacking. So, again, remember, you can use multiple different tools here. You can use a HELOC as your line of credit. You could actually use a line of credit from a bank. You could use your policy, which is what we choose to do because we want to have complete control over the scenario and we get more benefits from utilizing our policy. But if you guys got some value from that, be sure to, if you're watching a video, throw us a like, be sure to subscribe, or if you're listening on the podcast version, go ahead and leave a review and toss me a little comment as well. Greatly appreciate that. Definitely helps the show out. But, anyways, awesome things coming. I got some great content for you guys coming around income stacking, and you that are in the infinite banking space, just now learning about this, you're in for a treat. For all of you that have never heard about this and you're not in infinite banking, let's get you educated about IBC and let's get this thing really rocking and rolling. All right, y'all. I'll see you next time. Hit him with that outro music. Peace. Financial freedom is possible, and it's yours to claim. What I say? What did I say? Was that not a great episode? I mean, jam packed with value. Thank you so much to Matthew and Terry. Uh, Man, just so much good stuff there. You could see why I was so excited to have them on. If you want to learn more about Mid South Homebuyers, head on over to their website, midsouthhomebuyers.com. I'll have it linked in the description below. Go on there, go on the website, check some things out, look at some of the rentals, play around a little bit. I mean, it's it's so well done, and it really gives you that ability to have a little fun and kind of, I don't know, dream about what might be coming down the pipeline for you in the future. But anyways, my wife and I will definitely be hitting up their facility next year to check it out, give everything a run through. Then I look forward to having those guys back on. But I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you did, throw it a like, thumbs up, 5 stars, whatever you're listening to this on, whether it's YouTube or whether it's on the Apple Podcast or Spotify app. Do your boy a favor, give him some love in the comments below. And yeah, as always, guys, the information is free, but the knowledge is priceless. I'll catch you next week with another episode. Who knows? Maybe I'll have a guest. But either way, I appreciate you tuning in. Peace, y'all. Hit that outro music.
Invest in your future, there's no time like today. Tune in, rise up, elevate your game. Financial freedom is possible, and it's yours to claim.